Dan and Amy. So Trump's meeting with Mexican President Peña Nieto
was perfecto.
Oh, very nice.
Esos hombres es amigos de ahora mismo.
So he went from the Mexican presidential palace to Phoenix to give his immigration policy speech, a 10-plank platform, specific substantive proposals to rethink and reshape America's immigration policy.
Yeah, and there was nothing barbaric about it. It was he was straight on. He looked presidential. I'm falling in love with him again, Dan. I don't know what's going on, but please don't sing about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's just so gratuitous to criticize my singing. It's jealousy. I know. It's jealousy.
I'm jealous of many things, but I'm really envious of your vocal range.
You don't have the upper register that I do. But
okay.
But here's the thing. In addition to Trump's remarks, what was interesting at the end of his speech, if you saw it, and I know you did, but for our listeners who may have missed it, he had a number of families who have lost a family member to violent crimes committed at the hands of a person who is here illegally. And Trump's emphasis throughout the speech, he covered a lot of ground, but his emphasis was on the 2 million some criminal illegal immigrants that are in this country at present, whether they were caught and released by federal law enforcement or they were just never caught at all. That's his emphasis as well. It should be. Give you a sampling. Ronald De Silva's mom, and it speaks to more than just crime and the specific incident. Of course, it speaks to what kind of legal regime we should have. Ronald De Silva's mom.
Say just a few words about your child.
My son, Ronald De Silva, was murdered April 27, 2002 by an illegal alien who had been previously deported. And what makes me so outrageous is that we came here legally. Thank you, Mr. Trump. I totally support you. You have my vote.
Thank you.
I had a string of different family members up there, mainly moms, and I'm telling you, I started crying.
Brenda Sparks.
So I'm voting for Trump. And by the way, so is my mother.
We missed the first half. Brenda Sparks also talked about the son, I believe, that she lost at the hands of a person who is here illegally. And by the way, was her husband, I think, was of Honduran descent.
That's right.
An
She
immigrant.
pointed that out. Yep.
An immigrant.
That he came here legally, and this is what happened. And that's why all of them said it was just a graphic example and just tugged at your heartstrings of why we need immigration reform.
And so what does the left say to those people? Do their lives matter, as it were? The thing that I liked about Trump's speech and his remarks after his meeting with the Mexican president is he focused on immigration as a positive good, but only if done in a way that is sensible and respectful of the security concerns and interests of Americans. He made a specific mention that America has brought 59 million immigrants into this country, admitted 59 million immigrants since 1965, over the last 50 years. Mm-hmm. And that's great. We're a country of immigrants. We always have been. We always should be. But we shouldn't have family members, like you heard from at the end of Trump's remarks, have to sacrifice their children on the pyre of sentimental liberalism. And that's the big difference. So the focus on criminals and stemming the tide, and even the more difficult question of those who are here illegally but have been law-abiding otherwise and have been here for an extended time. I'm sorry. We've got to send a message. This is the system we're going to have. It's going to treat people fairly and equitably before the law, and everybody's going to have to play by the same rules. You don't get an advantage because you are a more effective cheater than somebody else in terms of entrance into this country. And I thought the policy proposals he laid out, which are just quickly, the wall, of course, end, catch, and release, which is consistent with number 3, zero tolerance for criminal aliens. Number 4, this is important, particularly in Chicago, block funding for sanctuary cities. You're not going to get federal government funding if you're just dismissing federal law and not cooperating with federal law enforcement as it pertains to immigration enforcement, and we will support cities that do. That's absolutely right.
And federal law Trump's state and city law anyway, doesn't it? And it should have been, but they're going around it.
You know, where does Chicago or Cook County
or San Francisco or any of those sanctuary cities think they can get away with that?
I get to enforce which laws I like, and I don't enforce which ones I don't.
Yeah,
that's the rule of men, not the rule of law. And that's what we have in Chicago and Cook County and the state of Illinois, which is why we're the worst governed city and county and state in the country. So I don't think that's a model to replicate. Number 5, cancel BOs, EOs, Barack Obama's amnesty executive orders. Those are going to get canceled. Number 6, suspend visas from places where proper vetting cannot be done, his so-called extreme vetting. 7, strongly encourage to the point of force countries to take back people who are being deported from this country for whatever legitimate reason. Number 8, complete the biometric visa tracking system. 9, E-Verify, and 10, a corollary to E-Verify, which is a immigration system overall that operates in the best interest of the American worker. And there, of course, he's talking about labor.
Yeah, and then add 5,000 more Border Patrol agents, great idea, and triple the number of ICE deportation officers. So they'd be part of the deportation team that would go after the criminals first.
And for more on this, we're happy to be joined again by Steve Cortes. He's a member of Donald Trump's National Hispanic Advisory Council. Steve, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Good morning.
Good morning. So one of the things that was interesting about Trump's remarks, both in the presser with President Peña Nieto and in his speech, is we got beyond. I mean, obviously, if you're talking about a wall on the southern border, that pertains specifically to Mexico. But overall, it was a more global conversation about the immigration regime in this country and about immigration and national security around the world. It wasn't just about Mexico, because immigration and associated challenges are not just about Mexico. And I thought that was a better moment for Trump to provide a more global perspective.
Yeah, Dan, I completely agree. You know, immigration is not just about fairness in terms of those who follow the rules, the immigrants who do it the right way, and it's not just about economic policy. It's also about national security. And if we want to look at a country, I think, that's doing it the wrong way right now, it's Germany. Angela Merkel has just opened the doors and said basically anyone without really any vetting is allowed to come in. And I think we see some of the really terrible consequences of that kind of policy. We can't let that happen here. And you're exactly right, by the way. Mexico has an incredible border problem that doesn't get very much attention. Their southern border is a huge issue for them. And by the way, I would also point out, the United States is so incredibly principled and kind to people who break our laws. Mexico is not so kind at all. So Mexico is a huge deporter and treats its illegal immigrants on its southern border in a much more harsh fashion than we do here. But the point is, you know, I don't want to get into comparing necessarily. The point is, the U.S. and Mexico, we are friends and neighbors and allies. We have a great future together. Great neighbors often need a great fence. I think we're going to have that. We both have a common problem of people moving across borders illegally that we need to contain, and I believe Donald Trump addressed that and spoke for regular people, not for the elites in the Upper East Side of Manhattan or in a salon in Georgetown, but regular people in Arizona and Texas who deal with this on a daily basis.
Now, I heard Donald Trump speak last night and talk about that deportation task force for criminals, which I agree with, but this mass deportation for later, and he's hoping for self-deportation, kind of the same thing that Mitt Romney had.
Yeah, you know, I have to say, look, I love Trump. I'm an ardent supporter. I'm part of the campaign, and I want him to win. I'm not fully on board with everything he says, and frankly, I wish he'd taken a more gentle approach on that issue, on people who have been here for a very long time, who have been working and have clean records, and have family members who are American citizens. You know, if you're a Mexican grandmother who's been here for 30 years and you have legal children and legal grandchildren, the idea you're going to self-deport, to me, that's just one place where Mr. Trump and I would not see eye to eye.
But it's but what I think what he's trying to do when he says we're going to break the cycle of amnesty, and we're going to send a message the world over that you can't come to this country and expect that you're going to be able to stay here just because you're effective at coming here illegally and waiting out the clock until politicians get around to doing something about the system. So, I mean, it's one of those things where maybe down the road, if he gets, some of what's on his 10-point plan, that there's give, I think, with people that you're describing. But you have to set out a statement of principle as a leader and then kind of work from that and, compromise where you have to get the majority of what you want.
Yeah, no, and Dan, that's an important point. And by the way, I always bring this up with conservatives. Ronald Reagan actually instituted all-out amnesty.
Yeah, that's right.
Forget about that. He did it 30 years ago. Then he later, though, lamented the fact that he created, unfortunately, a bad precedent where a lot of illegals then came over because they said, well, look, as long as you're exactly right, as long as we wait out the clock, we're going to be legal at some point. So, no, listen, that's an important point, and I believe me, I don't mean to sound critical of I want to say President Trump because I hope he'll be President Trump. I don't mean to sound critical of Mr. Trump. I'm an ardent supporter, and I believe he will be the next President of the United States. There are some specifics of immigration where we don't see eye to eye, that's fine. Sure. On the bigger issue, and this is important too, I think what he did last night is he really turned this issue. We have for too long bought this media narrative that the illegal aliens are somehow the victims here, and they're not the victims. The American people are the victims, whether they're the actual victims of crime or whether they're the economic victims of having to compete in the labor market against illegal aliens who are almost always willing to work for lower wages because of their status. And by the way, maybe the biggest victims of all are people like my father, who are immigrants who did it the right way, who went through a very cumbersome process for visas, for naturalization, to allow illegals to then cheat and skip the line and hop in front of them is incredibly unjust. So I think what he did, Donald Trump, and it's really amazing in some ways that this New York billionaire is the one who is able to speak for regular people and really resonate and speak to their minds and hearts. And I think he did that last night of saying enough of this narrative that the illegals are the victims. You, the American people, are the victims, and we're going to solve this.
All right. He is Steve Cortes. He is a member of Donald Trump's National Hispanic Advisory Council. Steve, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.